Welcome to the Practice Podcast, conversations probing the nature of practice. I'm your host, Dave Fearon. This is a conversation with Bob Loughery, who is a managerial leader with a very long career in property and casualty insurance. As long as I've known him, and that's a long while since he was my student in 1986, Bob has particularly liked building the systems for taking in first calls from, in this case, claimants for property and casualty problems. In earlier stages, it would be other intakes that customer service required. And Bob's been part of that evolution ever since. But he has a story to tell now, which you'll find, I think, very compelling. Because technology aside, it is people, it's his people. It's how he can bring out the best in them, and they bring out the best in him. It's a wonderful guy here that we're going to listen to, and I hope that you will understand why I say that very soon into the call. So here is Bob Loughery. Sometimes I do go down memory lane to reconnect with a former student, but in this case, I think it was like a trip from Connecticut to Florida to find Bob Loughery, because
North Carolina. I'm in Charlotte.
It's a lot of memory. I guess I'm using the analogy of a long trip down memory lane, but
it's been a long, strange trip.
When we reconnected momentarily just a while ago, I think, Bob, you said it had been 1986 that you were my student, and I was like, how many years ago? I can't do the math in my head.
A long time ago, about 36 years ago or so.
36 years. And yet, as we've just been doing a little bit of yakking before I turned on the recording, Bob's memory of that time and mine is very clear, and not just from the classroom side, because that was really early. I just started there at Central. But once I felt the leadership that Bob carried in him, and then saw him moving into a major company, the Hartford, I chased him down a number of times. I said, Bob, I want to bring some classes to you. Bob, will you come in and talk to my classes? I've got a couple of high-po kids who need a really good internship. And you never failed to do a really great job at my teaching. So folks, this is the guy who made me wonderful as a teacher right here. But Bob right now is director of claims for a company that you said, Bob, that it's the largest company nobody knows about in the property and casualty world of insurance. Assurant.
Yeah, and Assurant Insurance Company. We're home based. Our home office is based out of New York City. Oh. We have the leadership team of the company is primarily located in Atlanta, as I am. During the before COVID, I was down there during the weekdays. I had an apartment down there. Still in Charlotte, North Carolina. I've been down here for 15 and a half years.
Yes, you have. A Connecticut boy.
Yes, a Yankee gone home.
A Yankee, yeah. But, I want to add into Bob's story before we continue on that Hartford's a big deal in our state. It's a big company. It's a huge property and casualty company. And you had a really good run there for a number of years. And then, as I just discovered, you said, okay, all right, I'm going to do something different. And so you left the Hartford back, 5 years?
5 years, June.
Wow. So what did it feel like with you had so much of the Hartford dust in your bloodstream to start fresh and relatively far along in your career?
It was, I tell you, and I still struggle with it to this day, no lie, about just logging into the computer. At the Hartford, the login ID was first initial, first name, last name, and then your last five of your social security number. It couldn't get much easier.
Yeah.
I come to this company and it's random letters and numbers. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense.
Well, that was the only tough thing. The rest was a piece of cake.
But that's one of the few, that's probably one of the only aspects I miss of the Hartford at this point. Some real good people. I mean, just some
very nice people.
Fortunately, a lot of those, the people that influenced me as much as they did, I have been long gone. I was one of the survivors, if you would.
Oh yeah, there's so many changes, layoffs, layovers, and it was tough. It was tough for lots and lots of people. Now you're in this relatively new role still, and what were some of the challenges you found that you overcame, and therefore making room for more challenges?
I took over. I jumped into customer service for insurance, property casualty claims. Took over the customer service, which is responsible for taking primarily the first notice of loss when a customer calls in, and then also when they call in and they're wanting a status of their open claim. Go through my folks, and one of the things, this group had been ostracized largely within the claim organization by design, by their own leadership, which was really kind of disheartening, because the people to this day, they still feel like they're second-rate citizens, and it's unfortunate. It's really required a lot of work to try to bridge that. Some stops, start stop type of thing. But then the primary thing was it wasn't the operation was not like a foundation. There wasn't a compass, a mission statement of what they were aiming to do. It wasn't based on decisions were being based on the business. They were being based on, God, I don't know what. No checks or balances in place. So I walked in and I was like, whoa, there's no monitors, there's no controls in place. People are, I met with the people right off the bat, and they just bitched about how they were working from home. They were allowed to work from home, and then they were pulled all back in. And no explanation. And they just wanted to get back home. And I was like, okay. And so, I just said, within 30 days, I was able to put together, the whole, first 30 days, which was, I laid out an operating plan with the pillars or cornerstones of what we had to be all about. And that had to be about, just the expenses, had to be around the people, and then it had to be about just efficiency and so we lined it up and we just started. So then we had each of our responsive, we had our boxes of, basically what would get us there. And so we went like hell on it. It was basically one other manager and myself, and we just went, and then we had, it was a smaller team. We were only about 60 people deep total. And and I had turnover. I had to move out some managers who weren't drinking the Kool-Aid, so to say.
They weren't leading. Yeah.
They weren't leading, and they wanted to play. They didn't understand the value of what I was trying to do, and so perhaps I could have done a better job around that. I know I alienated somebody. One of the big mistakes I made was I didn't pull the more tenured folks aside and explain what I was doing to them, and I left that up to the managers, and that was a mistake.
That makes sense.
And I really, I should have been more intentional around getting my message directly to them. Which, in hindsight, was a good learning, and I've taken those steps since. But it's it was a lot of heavy lifting because right off the bat in summer of 17, we had a huge hurricane. We had Houston. And that's right. And Houston, that just wouldn't stop.
And these are mainly commercial and homes, or
personal. It was about homes and rental, renters. People being displaced, and
so those claims are. That's right up the top of the safety ladder. And then what you were dealing with,
Houston, and then boom, all of a sudden now we have Miami being targeted. I think Irma was rolling in right there, right on the heels of that. And so I I had to have about 130 temps working between Atlanta and Miami. And I really saw some outstanding people. I saw some of my folks who really, really stepped up big time. And I told them point blank, I told them, I said, hey, I'm going to take care of you. You take care of me. And I said, I'm going to take care of you. And which I honored. There's some great little, prideful stories, calling up a talent acquisition person, negotiating on behalf of one of my reps who was looking to get a job in accounting, and she just got her degree. And so I challenged that recruiter. She was all within the Assurant family. I said, is this just going to be a data entry role? I said, if it is, she's better than that, and I won't let her go. I said, 2, you better pay her, because if you don't pay her, I will pay her, and I'll keep her.
How'd that turn out?
Oh, the recruiter was stunned. She was stunned. She said, I've never had anybody say that to me. I said, that's fine. I said, but I'm taking care of people that have taken care of me. Yeah. And I said, I think you could appreciate it. And she says, you're right, I can. And so she was Carolina was taken care of. She's just a wonderful young lady down in Miami, and she was incredible.
I love that story. And that's you, by the way, Bob.
I tell you, you got to take care of people.
That wasn't just one in Carolina. I can think of a few that you go to bat for. In fact, I'll do a quick insert here. When Steve Cavallari, Professor Cavallari, who you know, and I wrote Inside Knowledge, the way to performance improvement. We wrote it about a woman, Dana Gilbert, in a call center. Now, it was in a manufacturing company, but she was getting ready to resign when I started this novel. It's a novel. And the guy came along, and I think it might have had the same character as you in my head, and said, look, just wait a while. You're so valuable. And I realize there's been a lot of change in this call center. They were basically trying to replace these people with technology. The villain was the technology. And I know that it was influenced by my experiences with you. It really was. Dana Gilbert, it ends up with a pretty good ending, but there was a lot of crap in the middle that she had dealt with and others dealt with. And it was about organization change and personal change. But your Carolina is my Dana, only she needed someone like you, and she did. And I named him Lewis Fuller. So you still have this unbelievable energy. And I know some of it you get from being a golfer, we talked about that, and a great family man. But where does the energy, how do you get your energies up now that you've kind of get that system in place? People know what they're about. The pillars are strong. Are there any other short challenges that you can keep those energies up there, Bob?
Yeah, without a doubt. As you had shared with your own personal battle of with illness, I've gone through quite a bit myself.
Oh.
Yeah, and so it's I think it's 14 years now. I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, incurable, and it had landed it started in the pancreas, moved over to the liver. At the time, the MRI radiologist had described it as innumerable, quote unquote, innumerable tumors.
Holy crap!
No cure. So nothing I could. No, I didn't.
You are on my screen. I see you. You're there. So
I'm here in the flesh.
14 years.
Yeah, and it turned out to be the best blessing of my life because what it did was it allowed me. I prioritized my son and raising my son and giving him the upbringing that he deserved. And that was wonderful. I cannot look back with any regret whatsoever, not for a single day. And I get through. Get him out to college. He's at Western Carolina right now. He's a junior out there.
Wonderful.
And then last summer I went in, had a little pain right up in the chest area, esophagus, and turned out I was in AFib, and I needed to get over to the hospital. That resulted in quadruple bypass. I had 2 arteries that were completely 100% closed, including infamous Widowmaker.
Oh, yeah.
It was 80%, and the fourth one was 70% closed. I have a pacemaker now. So I spent the month of June in the hospital last year, and then I was at the golf course chipping some golf balls in my recovery. I went in for a Gatorade, and I passed out. And another trip up to the hospital. This was in August, at which they found a tumor on my brain. And so I had to have that removed with my pituitary gland in September. And then, in the fall, they found another lesion on my spine. The cancerous lesion on my spine. So, but where it all, the energy that you speak of.
Yeah.
When I was, when I came through, after the heart surgery, I remember being in, I was in Charlotte, uptown Charlotte, and I just, talking to my wife, maybe my son, I'm not really sure who, and I just said, I'm here for a reason. My job's not done because I've taken up, various challenges, as I call them, my hobbies. Before joining Assurant, I had taken up, my son was redistricted to a new high school when he was as an incoming freshman. And that school, it just, he was at this school and he went down to a school like this, okay? Put into New Britain terms, if there's anybody from the Central Connecticut area, it's like going from Berlin to New Britain.
Yeah.
And I'm a proud New Britain High grad, so
it's the conditions are rough. Yeah.
So I got involved, and that was probably the best thing. And I took over. I ran their booster club for which included their elementary school, middle school, and high school. Wow. And it was a great experience. I had a lot of fun. We found some incredible things that were just there, just disgust you. But anyway, state investigators handled that. And then when I took the job in Atlanta, I was working with 20-somethings, just as a hobby, just trying to help out some kids who made a decision, a bad decision here or there. Yeah. And just trying to get them back on the right course. Yeah. But anyway, so when I woke up in the hospital bed, it was like, hey, my job's not done. I got to do something. I have to continue to give. And so I said, I'm sure it's gonna strike me what that is. Well, lo and behold, what I did not expect was it was going to strike me in my own team. And I caught the passion around just taking my team to a new level, to a level that no one's ever experienced. I put out the word out to HR, and I said, hey, you're going to need new metrics to basically grade us, new employee engagement surveys. I said, we're going to rewrite everything.
Wow.
And she was like, okay, right. Yeah, okay. You did a nice job this year, blah, blah, blah. You did a nice recovery.
They're blurring the wrong guy.
I took them over, and then we were the highest. We finished top 10 in the company. And I said, you haven't seen it yet. I said, 2022 is going to be the year. And so I started on this crusade back in the fourth quarter. And while we're still working from home, we are the most engaged group I've ever seen in my life. For instance, we have happy hours every now and then, and we had one this past Friday. It started at 9:00 at night Eastern Standard Time. Mm-hmm. Okay, how many people are going to show up to that, right? Mm-hmm. Well, now we're down to our team's about 35 people. And once you know it, there was I had a prior commitment, so I couldn't join on until 10:30, and there were still like 13 people on the call.
Yeah.
Yeah, several of them were intoxicated, which was great. That was
fun. Hey, it's called happy hour, and it's after,
and we were playing. It was
you're not driving anywhere. You're sitting at your desk. Yeah.
And we have a murder mystery coming up in the month of March. There's just the energy is just unreal, and they haven't even seen the best yet. That's my personal thing for this year is I've cataloged it. Bring yourself, and the word yourself is all caps. Bring yourself to work every day, and what I mean by that is is we're going to start something I picked up at during a college football recruiting trip down to Coastal Carolina, down right by Myrtle Beach. And the coach there was a former CEO of TD Bank North. And I mean, the guy is just amazing. I believe he's passed, but he's just amazing. And I learned so much on that one trip down there, from the banners hanging everywhere, which was BAM, B-A-M. Well, I'm like, what the heck is that? Is this a Fred Flintstone takeoff? It's only to find out that BAM stood for Be a Man. And not in a
gender way. Yeah.
Gender way. It was about, you have to be responsible.
That's right. Man.
They didn't have any code of conduct. They did not have a guide for how to conduct yourself as a student athlete. He said, we don't need that. We have team captains and we have players, and you're accountable for those players. So if you get into an argument at 2:00 in the morning, well, regardless of what the argument was about, you have to explain to your brothers why you were out at 2:00 in the morning when you should have been in bed, getting ready to wake up next day to be able to practice your craft of football. And it was just and plus what he also shared was once a week, the captains get all players together, and this is during their coaching time, which is limited. So that time is of the essence there.
Absolutely.
They allow 45 minutes each week to talk about the issues facing society, which I thought was beautiful. I thought was beautiful. And what it does, it creates the team harmony, because everyone understands. They may not agree, but they understand. And knowledge is power, without a doubt, right? I mean, we've heard, discrimination, prejudice it's based and rooted in ignorance. If we could alleviate that, wham. So I'm stealing that concept I want to bring that into my workplace, which in a workplace is, well, I'll just put it this way. I haven't sought approval from the HR community. I said, at my age, I'm going for it because
it's the right thing to do.
It's truly the right thing to do. And I know there's a lot of people who walk around eggshells over these issues, between the protests, the riots, everything. And I want us to be able to have an open dialogue, what these things mean to one another. And again, I have a boss who is without a doubt the nicest boss I've ever met, I've ever worked for. Hands down, the nicest individual. This guy, Jim Littleton, just a wonderful, wonderful guy. And he shared something with me that just blew me away about his own family. And it was like, and then, during one of my leadership meetings, he shared it at the leadership meeting, which I thought was beautiful, because it opens a door to us just speaking freely.
Hey, we're human beings after all. I think that's leadership right there.
Hey, and it's like, if we could just get that stuff out there so that we could be who we are, then I think that we could help people. And that's really, my big thing is I'm really, it ripped me up. It tears me up on the inside about, these young adults, 20-somethings who, think that suicide is an option. And it breaks my heart. And I've been I have a couple of very good friends who battle with that. Actually, 3 very good friends who battle with it. And I can't help but think that if I'm able to get them talking and get them to be understood, and there's help everywhere. People know people. People have been through experiences, and they will help you. They will stop and help you when you're in need. And I said, I have to give this a shot. And so that's going to be our big thing in 2022 and continue forward. Is I want, and it's the excitement. I brought in like a core group in the beginning of December, and kind of shared just shared it with them, the concept. And I have some music behind it. Some Alicia Keys is amazing. I'm actually influenced by her. John Lennon's one of my faves as well, obviously.
I see some Beatles on you.
And
folks.
Imagine the song Imagine is so powerful in that.
A wonderful song.
I mean, I may not be, well, I will talk about, I'm not referencing, say, specifically war, right? But it's about the war that we face every day and these kids face every day. And I tell you, and it's, we can replace that, I believe. I think that we can flip that. And if I could give people an incredible 10-hour experience every day or 8-hour experience every day, one, they're going to be better people. Two, I'm begging that they take this and they demand it wherever they go, because that's where the change takes place, is when they leave our house and they go out and they have to demand it. And then just trying to get my influence, my voice louder, because I think that I have to, my goal is to be able to influence more up and coming leaders. And then I have this crazy idea of following one of my mentor's footsteps, the great Doc Farron, and go for my PhD, be able so that I can write and I can share what I think I could do to help.
Oh, well, that's, I had no idea how inspiring this call would be. Why didn't I? I mean, what's wrong? I'm talking to Bob Loughery, and he's always had that challenge. But when you put it in the context of what you're dealing with now, I want to summarize one point, though, I think is quite important to what Peter Vale and I called managerial leadership. It's not just managing, it's not just leading, but when you can fuse in one person and then spread through others this notion that we all manage, but we all lead. This story you're telling is there, but then you take each of the persons who's in your contact system who does that job, got the headset on, and there's no idea what the next call is going to bring. It could be a disaster. It could be someone who's complaining that they don't quite understand the last bill. Who knows? It comes to them.
Yep.
My point is, you're looking at each of those persons as someone who you are helping develop as practitioners, as human beings, so that they can set the terms going forward, because they know their worth. They know what they can do. And how would they know that? In part, you've got systems of metrics, which you've been beautifully developing all the years I've known you. You show people, here's your goal, here's your way to get, know how you're going to get there, and we'll monitor it. But you're going to monitor it too. So you're growing people from the job out, not necessarily up, but out to wherever they want to be in their life.
Right.
Wow. That's a piece of work. Now, in terms of becoming a Doc Farron, I was only 30 when I earned my PhD, and you're over 30. So I had a long time for it to soak in. But you and I will definitely talk about the pragmatics of that goal.
There is one other aspect that that you mentioned around the goals and the metrics. Because this year, and we just rolled out our goals to my extended leadership team Friday, and so it's very fresh. And I committed to my managers. I committed to them last year. I said next year, in 2022, I said you guys are not going to have metrics for goals. And they raised their eyebrows, similar to what you did, maybe a little bit. Oh, really? And I said, yeah.
Yo, what are you going to do? My bonus is on the line.
Well, because what happens, right, is that becomes their priority. That becomes all the focus.
The metrics, yeah.
And I'm at a point, right? This is, I'm into year 5, and this is the latest it's taken me in any of my stops along the way to get rid of those metrics as goals. It's usually right around the end of year 2. Year 3 is when I could put those comfortably. I could set those back, and because it gets to a point where people understand what they need to do. They know how to do it. Okay. So what's the disconnect at this point? Okay. Some people may not do it as well as somebody else because so much of it is subjective. Or
exactly. A lot of judgment calls.
Yeah. Or else we rely upon what we call imperial data, which is hardly imperial or accurate. You're going to get two different regardless of which system or which industry you're in. And so I'm trying to de-emphasize that and trying to really look at people from ranges. And so that I say, hey, and I tell folks all the time, I said, just get off the radar. Don't be an outlier. If you're an outlier, that's what's going to bring the attention. I said, if you're not an outlier, I said, you're fine. No one's going to tell me the difference is if somebody listens to 10 calls and somebody has a quality score of 97 and somebody else has a quality score of 93. No one's going to tell me those calls are different. The listener, how the quality person interpreted it. It's still a very good experience, and really that's what I want. And so this year is where we're kind of we're putting all the help guides in place so that as people need help, it's up to them to say, hey, I need help. Again, hired adults, we're treating them like adults. Well, I want them to act like adults too. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And hey, this is for you. This isn't for me. This is for you. I need you. You got to own it. And I go back. I love Tom Peters is still my idol from
he's still
your class. Yeah, he's still the man. The ownership, and I used the reference about when was the last time you ever washed a rental car, right?
I showed you those videos, and then I didn't have to teach. I just put them on the screen, and you guys soaked them up.
No, you don't need to wash your rental, but you're going to wash and wax your own car, and that's right. The only component, and that's what I'm trying to push. And it's
going to work, Bob.
Yeah, and what I want my managers doing with the coaching sessions, because I've stepped up coaching sessions, is I want them, what could I do for you? I flipped it. It took me a while to get into Tom Peters mode of, I flipped that paradigm, right? Where the reps are front line. They're interacting with that customer. They know more than anybody in terms of what they need to take care of that customer. And I've always had a rule of thumb of, you lose 15% each step back. So my frontline manager only knows about 85% of what they deal with. Me, I'm like in the 60s, 70% range. And it still kills me when they bring me into meetings about a new claim management system. I'm like, why do you have me here? I said, I haven't put a single claim in this system, ever. What am I going to tell you?
You're asking the wrong people. Exactly. You're asking my Dana Gilbert. That's who should be asked. You should ask her.
And give them a say. And that builds their confidence. It builds their ownership. It builds everything. And it's so that's been something. And actually, I had the training department just kind of, we've never had this approach before, because they would ask, how was training for new hires? And they put this questionnaire out to the managers and me. And when I first started, I'm like, why the hell am I getting this? I didn't go through the training. So I flipped it over to the 4 new hires. Well, the feedback that went back to the trainers from the managers was, hey, everything's great. The feedback that came from the 4 new hires totaled, it was like 2.5 pages of feedback.
Yeah.
And they came to me and they said, what is this? And I said, well, this is the feedback. I said, once they got on the floor, they realized where the gaps were between the training and what they needed. And they were like, they handled it. And I tell you, and I talked to, this one gentleman, Jay, to this day, because he's no longer with the company. The guy's just wonderful. And he says, and he had a big smile when he says, no one's ever done this, but I like this. And it's about the customer.
I love it. I've got to watch my time, because this could become a 5-episode series we're running here. But I'm coming back to you. But I will say, on behalf of the podcast part of our recording, I've had a lot of ambitious ideas over my whole career about how life should be for anyone who's employed in any place, and you have codified it beautifully in this conversation. You see potential, and then sometimes more than someone sees their own, and you help them see it, and then you create the conditions so they can move out toward that potential. And that's so foundational into why Peter Vail and I want people to think hard about practice, because practice is solely owned and operated by the person. And
I think that term is beautiful. I do. I loved it when I saw that when I came across that podcast, when I reached out to you last week, I thought I was like, wow. I mean, it's so spot on, because one of the other things, I'm a book guy. I love being able to get books from my manager. But this year I've taken it to a new level, and I loaded up the entire extended leadership team, including my manager even, on several different books, because this is the year of, I'm calling this the servant leadership.
Yeah.
And it's so the manuscript. And so that was one book. And then a lot of John Maxwell books, the Daily Planner, as well as How Successful People Think. Mm-hmm. And so what we do is each Friday during my leadership meetings is that we're going through a section of one of those books. And as my manager called it, the first meeting a couple of weeks ago, he says, geez, he says, I feel like I'm at a Assurant Leadership Book Club. I said, you are.
You are. Welcome. Well, my book is on practice as a way of being, or our book, Peter Vail and mine. And when you get it, I'm going to send you a link to it. It's, first thing, it's digital. It's not an ebook. It's not. We can print out paper at for those old-fashioned folks who want it, but it's digital and it's alive. Right at this moment, there are 5 sections that are already in place. And if you own it, you can see those sections. But I can be adding and will be adding accessories to each of these sections, links to the podcast, articles, other things to make it even a richer experience. The other thing is that the 32 conjectures that Peter made of the nature of practice that I've taught, in a sense, with my writing, each one is in its own clickable box, if you will. So you could say to the guys, we're going to do conjecture 17 next week. Take a look, click it. They read maybe 2 or 3 pages, very easy read. They can make the letters big, or they can do whatever they want. And then you can discuss each conjecture. Like I mentioned earlier in the call, practice is eliminative. It's one of his ideas, or maybe it wasn't in this call. Earlier today, basically, one of them was, and this is sort of the summary of the Bob Loughery story so far. You have to leave some things behind in order to be ready to take some things forward. That's the nature of practice. And some of the things you leave behind are bad habits or whatever, or even easy relationships that you hate to break, but you got to break them in order to, move on. So that's the Bob Loughery I know, folks. I will definitely be chasing him down for another one. But I'm going to give him a chance to once again say how wonderful I am, and then I'll stop the recording, but we'll keep talking. Bob, you're on. You're on.
I tell you, I still have, I was looking for those little blue booklets that you would give us that we would have to write down, in our notes after every session on what we learned in class or from a reading and apply it. That's actually something that I applied just this past week. Yeah. About, read over, the various pages. Mm-hmm. And, there's 10 different items. And I said, pick one, summarize what that is, but tell me either how you've applied it or how you think you can apply it. And it's
right on, man. That's what we did. Learning synthesis reports.
And what it does, and this is where a lot of people kind of miss the connect with, education, the academic world, right? And, and the business sector is that you have to stay fresh, mm-hmm. Because things are changing. And for anybody to really question that, when I was going to school, it was, I think there's stores like Sears, Kmart. There weren't any Walmarts. I can tell you that right now.
No, not at all.
I graduated high school, of 81. There weren't any Walmarts per se, but it's, this just it speaks to the evolution, and everything's evolving, and people's interests are evolving in a way that they need to be treated. But one of the things I did, just kind of researching quickly, kind of like over time, I've always had in my mind, that I learned in your class about, classic management style, right? Came up through American industrial, age, right past World War II. And participative management took over, I think the year was 1983. In fact, I know that was the year. I have it memorized.
That's right.
We got a tattoo 83 somewhere. But
That's right.
And I remember asking you after that was, when would I ever see it in the workplace? And you said probably never.
Well, I was a pessimistic bastard back then, I think.
It makes sense because when the leaders, the C-level leaders are educated, this is what they're walking away with. But the problem is that leadership is not something it's not like a trade. It's not viewed as a trade. Whereas if you have a GC, a general contractor's license, okay, you have to do continuing education.
Yeah, right.
If you have an insurance license, you have to do continuing education. But if you're a leader, a lot of companies aren't even affording you entry-level leadership training. And it's criminal. And then I won't even speak to what I think is going to be the bigger issue of, you have a contact center or something, and who do you promote? Do you promote the person that is the true leader amongst people, okay, on the floor? Or because maybe that person doesn't look like the senior leaders looks like.
Yeah.
Or you promote the person that looks more like the senior leaders. And, it could be customer interfacing, if that ever, which doesn't happen in the real world anyway, but it's an argument. And it's like, this is something that I think that we're going to run out of I think we're running out of good leaders because we've been hiring the wrong leaders. Yeah. And it's something that it's deep. It's not just a 3-day training session or, leadership, exercise. This is something that we have to look at the core DNA of people, and we have to start to rewire some things. And because there's values, there's norms, there's social norms, there's things that people grew up with that's them. And if they are a true leader of the floor, damn it, man, we got to keep them there.
Well, you are
a dissertation right there.
You and I, Bob, have our work cut out for us then, because I'm not giving up on anything you said in regard to leadership as a fundamental practice, and you're not giving up because you've had 4 or 5 huge life scares and you're still here. So I think you're right. I think this is supposed to be happening between you and me, and I can't thank you enough.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Doc. You've been a huge, and I hold 2 people up as my mentors when it comes down to this leadership field, and you're one, along with my former boss, Mike Rankins, who I just love dearly.
I remember Mike well.
And Mike really took, he took me under his wing. He challenged me, and boy, did he challenge me. There's some bad text flying around at 4 a.m. in the morning a couple times. I'm sitting at the gym and I'm like, but I tell you, it's only when you get pushed out of your comfort zone does, become vulnerable, do you start to truly learn. And that could be in relationship, as a leader, as anything, as a person. And that's the lesson I learned with Mike. Boy, we went toe to toe a few times, but man, I tell you, I'd fight for that. Yeah, and you're right there. You gave me and I tell you, Tom Peters is still my idol. And I just, and those things that I learned, those fundamentals that I learned, they carry with you. And that's your core values as a leader, is what I learned during your management organization classes, organization behavior, all those.
Yeah, no, that's right. You really honor me. Thank you, sir, so much. If you'd like to hear more, listen in on Spotify, Automatic, and Apple Podcasts, or go to inactionresearch.com/podcast-page. And if you'd like to learn more about social inaction and the nature of practice, head over to inactionresearch.com for more information. Thank you for supporting this show. We look forward to hearing from you soon.